All right, so gamers. We got a lot of wild things that happen in video games. If anyone knows, like real early video games, especially arcade stuff, we got Dragon's Lair, the first kind of big one, that had a huge acclaim and fame for people back then. And they were just kind of big movies that if you didn't press the button right, you died. I'm gonna show you something. I'd like to get some audience participation. What do you think of this image?
I'm tearing up just looking at it.
Respectful.
This scene made me fucking break out laughing because this was like your best friend and you're at his fucking funeral.
Can you miss it? You missed the quick
No, it's a prompt. It's not a QuickTime event, unfortunately.
Press E to take your PTSD medications.
What are your opinions on QuickTime events? A lot of people say they should be used sparingly, especially when they're in cutscenes. And are used sparingly, people also get mad because they're distracting and then they kind of like take you out of the moment. Would you agree with this statement?
Yes. I think QuickTime events are a dated mechanic that was really around during like the early-ish 2000s, kind of like mid-2000, like 2010s for games and whatnot. Like it was a easy thing to throw in for a design where it's like, oh, well, we have an action scene or something intense happening. We need to button press and whatnot. I know,
but like you got Spider-Man right there. And I think that the Spider-Man PS4 has the best QuickTime mechanics I've ever used because the button is always like the button you would think you'd be pressing. Like there will be those moments where you have to aim the stick and then press the web sling button, but it's not a random button. It's just what you would be doing if you were playing the game instead of watching the cutscene.
If you have to, like, during a fight, have to be ready for whenever the next QuickTime event is going to come up. It keeps them engaged, but it can be done poorly. And if it done poorly, then it's like Cullen said, it just feels like a meaningless additive to the game.
Like the fucking Callisto protocol makes you mash square every time you open a door.
Yeah, that shit's annoying.
You see a lot of QuickTime events and a lot of very heinous ones at that, making it into like games that are usually like universally acclaimed for being good. It's a very cursed thing to put in a hardcore game, especially when it's like, oh, you need to press it very quickly, but then sometimes it just won't register, so then you just die anyway. What's the point of this presentation then? If I'm just saying, hey, QuickTime events bad. But we'll get into that because it's been mentioned before. There are some kind of decent QuickTime events in there and ways to implement them better. So I'm going to do a lukewarm defense using a few examples of also the mechanics in ways that have been used well recently. So one of my faves, and maybe I'll do a whole presentation of why this dumb game I love so much, is Azura's Wrath. You'll see here, there's a big jump, man, big thing. You're so small, and then there's so much impact in these little moments that you get in this game. You get these huge impacts that are kind of backed up with these very cool scenes and cinematics, and they're integrated into the game in a different way than just like being button pressed to do thing and feeling a bit disconnected. It's all very reactionary, almost more like a counter system in like a fighting game than just like a button you press to make a character do something so you don't die. A more, I guess, universally acclaimed one is Hi-Fi Rush.
Degenerate refuses to take L, dismantles capitalism in the process.
Am I wrong? Is there a lie?
My vote. I'm voting for this guy.
Yeah, Hi-Fi Rush, especially in the way it does its combat, kind of like builds in QuickTime events into its combo meter, and it's almost like Devil May Cry style point feature. Depending on if you do certain on-screen prompts and events, you get better points and also do more damage. It's a great way to integrate this kind of like rhythmic QuickTime mechanic into a game itself. Of course, there are many other iconic moments in games that are QuickTime events that people don't usually mention, or I never really hear them mentioned as like QuickTime events or in that conversation. Like Link kind of during Sword Out in Legend of Zelda, even though it's like you're just holding a button and your kind of way it interacts with the narrative and what's shown on the screen and what you're doing, and also your progress in the story. It's kind of like a nice moment for you.
All those fucking dungeons for a sword that still breaks.
Yeah. But then like Dead Space 2, I mean, one of the moments that I was spooked by the most. And that's like, it's again very slow for a QuickTime event, but it's your input that defines if you do or do not stab your character's eye out in that time.
That's
Legally,
like, if you were alive or watching Let's Plays in the mid 2010s, that moment haunts your nightmares. And your image in the top right for Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, I think it could be argued of all games, that game is one long QuickTime event.
Yeah. It's got a similar vein, I think, from what a lot of people that Zero's F does for me, where it's just like so fucking dumb and over the top, but like the way it uses QuickTime events, they don't take away from the experience. They make you feel like you're just releasing a lot of stress in the moment, especially near the end where you're fighting Senator Armstrong. Nano machines, son. I guess the final opinion, or final thing to say, the line between these can be debated and will become more blurred as games evolve. I just hope this little presentation can kind of like open up people a bit more to the concept of it. Especially, it was nice to hear people talk about QuickTime events as something that can be implemented well. It's not just like slap bang just to save time. But I just thought it would be nice to peel apart this like weird little mechanic that has a love-hate relationship. Mainly hate with the gaming community.
I think the gaming community has a hate relationship with most things.
Yeah, I think the gaming community has a hate relationship with games, honestly.
They just hate fun. Having fun is bad.
Having fun is bad.
What if it's me looking down on me? The world above must also be. This could go on for